You should use a condom before you listen.
The American dream is dead.
John Lisle, L.A. Lloyd, and Drew Bennett, Beaver Kool-Aid.
You know, this is, it's nothing like last episode of Beaver Kool-Aid when Drew related dropping his edible on the floor at the airport and then tracing his steps and finding again. But I did just eat a piece of bad cheese. I get deli meat and cheese for my daughter. My kids, when they're here every other weekend. I'm divorced, by the way, and thank you, all you ladies that listen to Beaver Kool-Aid for trying to get close to me. I'll get back to you, but I appreciate all the concern. So I get these, I get stuff from the deli for my daughter because that's what she eats. And then my son eats something completely different. So on Mondays, I always go to the bar with my friend, the great Louis J. Roney, one of the founders of the rock format on KISS in San Antonio, along with Joe Anthony. And so I have a narrow window when I get back. And then when we do the podcast, when we record the podcast. And so I knew I didn't have enough time to cook, so I grabbed some stuff from the fridge, and it just happened to be some of the deli meat and then the cheese, and and I just rolled up a big slice of cheese and stuck it in my mouth, and that's when I realized, oh no, I think this is expired. I think this is old. This is not good. So I had finally found the package and looked at the date, and yeah, I'm a couple of weeks out.
Wow.
But I could taste it, so that's gone.
Did you swallow it?
Of course I did. But it wasn't that. I mean, it wasn't green, but I lived a single life now. Once again, I've been living the single life for about 4 years. And I throw out so much food because I don't use that much. It's just me. I'm used to buying for a family, and this stuff goes bad all the time. And then I get pissed because I love when you buy something and it says, once opened, use within a week.
Mm-hmm.
But I have these other things like salsa. I don't need a big jar of salsa. I just want to throw some on a taco. But I open it, but there's nothing on there that tells me how long before it's funky.
That's because salsa has a high acidic content, so it's
I look sometimes. I get the it looks like the Civil War being waged because I got the blue and the gray on the rim, and then I know okay. Or sometimes it's fuzz on it, and obviously then I know that chunk it.
Wait a second. What kind of salsa are you buying down there in San Antonio? I mean, it sounds like you're not buying fresh salsa.
It's all overpriced. I just go and get something, and
they got that fresh salsa at the H-E-B. You should grab that. That's good stuff.
Well, I don't do that because I'm not going to use that much, and it's not going to have the preservatives in there.
So you don't know what the open date is. That's the problem. It's not an expiration date. You don't know what the open date is because you don't have.
Well, it's not just the open date. Once I open it, I wish something would tell me once opened, use within X amount of time.
Right.
Don't they have use by dates?
And I'm always picking up spices, and I look and I smell. It's like, well, that smells like nothing. That's older. If I find a date, and if it's over a year, I toss it. This thing, that thing. I just blow through all this stuff but so much of it, I don't know how good it is. And I Google things, and it kind of tells me, but I'm not using much. Salsa is a big one. I never blow through a jar of salsa. I mean, it's just a little bit because I'm just throwing some on a taco.
Wait a second. I just have a question.
Yeah.
So there's use by dates, but man, I've never heard of an open date. What is that?
Yeah, me either.
I mean, like when you actually opened it. Once opened.
But how do you remember that?
No, because the thing is that, that's the whole idea. You don't unless you get a Sharpie and put on there, because once it's open and it's no longer sealed, then everything starts to change, right?
But isn't that the same thing as a use by date?
No, because, a use by date could be there, whether it's opened or not, could be a use by date. And then you've got the sell by date, which is the latest that the grocery store can actually market it. And the use by date doesn't mean, the sell by date doesn't mean that it's, rotten and awful at that point. Because being a soon to be senior citizen on I don't want to say that I have no income, so I can't say that I'm on a fixed income.
That's fixed.
What I do a lot of times is I have a Wal-Mart just same distance from here as the HEB. It's just like a couple of minutes away. So I go over, there's never anybody there. It's like an empty Walmart. And so I go by there and get the yellow tag meat, like use or freeze by it. It's like the next day. And I go through there, and some days it's good trolling. Other days it's just not a good yellow tag day. But I don't mind doing that because I know I get it, stick it in the freezer, and maybe save 50%.
Seriously, that's like thrift shop for meats.
It is like that for me. And you never know. I was over there the other day, and dude was loading up on lamb shoulder. And it's like, well, I was considering that, but now you just took them all. But I did get a pork loin, not pork loin, but a pork shoulder roast, a butt for half off. So I just get that and stick it in the freezer. And I go, well, it's far more than I'll ever eat or my kids will eat or anything if we're all together, but it only cost me $8. So I go like, oh, okay.
Sounds like you need to throw a barbecue for Drew and I to come visit you, and we can do a Beaver Kool-Aid down there while we're having a little pork, a little swine.
Because then again, now I get the yellow tag meat. See, this is my point. I've done this for years, but now I really hit it hard. And my ex-wife once got sick on some short ribs that I'd gotten from Sam's Club. And it was like, they were marked down. And she says, why do you get this funky ass meat? And I go, it's good. It's just that they can't sell it.
But it is
like beef. If beef is pink, maybe it was just freshly cut, but we all know that when you get aged beef, it gets dark.
Yeah, it does.
And it's not ground beef. It's just been cut. That's it. But anyhow, so after that, then I couldn't go thrift shopping for meat anymore. But now that it's just me, I get this stuff all the time. And this Walmart, since nobody goes there, you can grab stuff all the time.
Have you, at your HEB in San Antonio, and this may just be the one in my neighborhood, but you know how they always have the turkey breast or the chicken that they have, ready to go. You can pick up and they tell you when it was cooked. Now I've started to notice they have all of this shredded turkey and chicken. It's like, hey, usually, and it's about a day you can use it. So I'm thinking, well, what are they doing? Are they taking the chicken back there to the deli counter, pulling it off, and then throwing it in a plastic container? Just one last ditch effort to get rid of that fucking chicken. Is that what it is?
I don't know, man.
It's got to be.
I used to say that's what they did when chickens started getting towards the expiration. They get them, cut them up, throw a bunch of paprika on them, and say, great for grilling.
Yeah. That's got to be what it is.
I have no clue, but I don't know what they do with all the stuff that goes away, because they don't do like Walmart where they may give you a 25% off kind of thing.
Yeah.
That's as much as you can get. But in Walmart, you can look and sometimes there's a yellow sticker on top of a yellow sticker.
Oh my God.
So it's been marked down twice. And those are the ones I really look for. So my kids Friday night got they had hot wings. They love hot wings. And it's like they didn't know that Daddy picked up, 3 or 4 pounds of hot wings for $6.
Yeah. That's like when you go to Nordstrom Rack in the shoe section, it first has that red sticker, then it's yellow, then it's purple, then eventually it only costs about $3 for a pair of Air Jordans or something, man. It's the same thing, because it's like a size 14, but somebody eventually is going to buy it.
Yeah, but they're like turquoise, and they got some web shit on the side.
Well, this meat's the same way. Who knows what that fucking sauce has got in it, man?
And the little wheelies don't work anymore.
Yeah, that's right.
See, I will never. I'm the kind of guy. I was talking to my friend last week, and he said, and I said, Murphy, when you have a house, this, everybody knows this. Murphy is always waiting. Because just when you think things are fine, then all of a sudden you go, wait a minute, it's hot in here, and your AC's out.
Yeah.
There's a leak, or there's this or that, whatever. But I said, I can deal, because once again, I'm, an older guy, not on a fixed income. I'm an older guy on no income. And I'm, there's always going to be something that's kind of float in and mess with me. Right? Where I'm going to get bent over and I didn't see it coming.
Oh, yeah. Like your transmission or something.
His thing was, as long as there's no comma. And I said, you're right. When I see the amount, if there's no comma, I'm okay. But that comma, when there's a comma in there,
yeah,
panic. So I always think that, and this has always been my mentality, because I, was once a starving disc jockey, that, making, I think my first full-time job, I was making $600 a month, working 60 hours a week.
Wow.
But when I always say $1 here, $4 there, $3 here, whatever, and then it adds up until I go to the bar and then just blow it all on a, couple hours of drinking. But so that's the reason why I take my chance with rotten food, because I think it's not rotten produce, but I'm thinking this protein is still okay. It's still all right. It's just because the regulations, the store can't continue to sell it. So when people, if you're talking about having a barbecue, people come over and see a bunch of yellow tag. Imagine if I had a chick over here. Yeah, I'll cook for you. But she's hanging out in the kitchen, and I break out my package of whatever, and it's got a couple of yellow tags on it.
That is not going to get you laid, my friend.
He turns it over, and half of it's red, and the other half of it's brown.
Right.
And I say, look, the same thing. I mean, live on the walk on the wild side, live on the wild side. I'll pull your hair back if you throw up. Hold your
whole
hair.
new reason to hold in that hair, man.
At this point in my life, I should sprinkle all that red crap all over me, you know, and just say, good for thrilling. And it's like I'm kind of at the end of my shelf life too.
Well, if she sticks an apple in your mouth, man, you're ready to go.
I had that happen once. That was on a school bus. I told you guys this before, and Lloyd knows this because he's from North Carolina. When I grew up, high school kids drove the buses.
Yes, I drove one myself.
And you tell that to people in Texas, and they look at you like, what?
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. They said, we're going to entrust our kids to somebody who's been driving for a year.
Yeah. No, I'd been driving less than a year.
Bus.
So I was once on a school bus, and I think it was my sophomore year in high school, and these guys didn't like me because I talked too much. Imagine already on this podcast. And they tied me up, they trussed me, and they stuck a freaking apple in my mouth. And that's how I went to school. Now you get it. Now that's a lawsuit. It used to be, that's called,
that's a scene in Deliverance.
I'll seek revenge. But that's what, things were wild then. You could do stuff like that.
I could just picture Ned and his tidy whities squealing like a pig. It's like Ned Beatty. John and Ned Beatty.
I wasn't stripped down. I was still, but I was trussed with the apple in my mouth that I couldn't remove.
Well, let me ask you, John. What about this baboon who escaped at the airport over there in San Antonio today?
I don't know anything about this. I got a text message from a woman, and she said something about the baboon thing, and I didn't understand what the hell she was talking about because I don't watch the news and I don't listen to the local radio. And
I got a little piece of the story, and they're calling it, and I know I'm going to massacre this, but it's a Rhesus Macaque. That's, I guess, the correct name of this primate.
You've reached for your what?
Rhesus Macaque.
I've sat next to a couple of those on a few flights.
I'll spell it for you. Rhesus. Maybe it's Rhesus. And then it's Macaque.
Might be Rhesus, but
Rhesus Macaque.
yeah, that's it. Because I got this text message from this woman, and she said, "Are you housing the baboon?" It said, "Okay, get real. Are you housing the baboon?" And I thought, is this some kind of slang for that I don't understand?
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
Well, supposedly it was on its way to the world's largest sanctuary in Dilley, Texas.
Dilly.
The biggest primate sanctuary in North America.
See, I didn't know about that.
And it was on its way there. And obviously they say, you know, wild animals traveling in jets freak out and had a chance to get out of the cage and had at it, took off.
Wait a second. This was at the airport? It wasn't on a plane?
It was on a plane in a cage, but somehow broke free.
And then got
While
off the plane?
it was like cargo being transported off the plane. And somehow when it got to the baggage handling area, it fucking took off. Can you imagine what people...
Well, you know how long it takes to get an Uber at those places.
I know it probably went that way. I didn't know this thing existed in Dilley. You know, I've got a primate sanctuary not far from where I live now, but the house I had previously was perched on a hill. And when I first moved in there, I was out in the morning, and you know how, depending on the atmosphere, how sound travels.
Yeah.
And it's like I'm hearing monkeys. Now, you got to imagine, man, you're in the Texas Hill Country. You don't think you're going to walk out in the morning and hear monkeys. And that's when I finally tracked it down and realized that there's this, you know, this primate sanctuary not all that far away. It's just a weird thing when you go, I hear monkeys.
Did you go spank
I don't
it?
know that I would.
This story right here.
I'm not sure if I lived close to a monkey sanctuary. That would be a little unnerving.
And it's actually Catula, and it has been captured. It was flying in from Chicago.
Right. I did get that part.
At a gig.
So it's Catula. And yeah.
Well, is it Dilley or is it Catula? Are they two different? I don't know either one of these places.
Yeah, they're on 35, Interstate 35.
How have I never seen this?
Because you never went to Boys Town in Nuevo Laredo.
Oh, it's south. Okay. All right.
Yeah, it's south of San Antonio.
Gotcha. Okay.
And I know you, man. You're an Austin guy. Even when you were here, it's like you're always heading up that way.
Got to go that way.
Northy.
Catula. Well, I'm glad that Rhesus Macaque is on his way to his home, and that's good. That's good.
See, you just like that because you just like saying that.
Rhesus Macaque?
Yeah.
That's the thing, and that could be your new radio name.
It could be. Rhesus.
I mean, no.
Macaque in the morning?
God. Oh, man.
So, I mean, why not? You're the guy.
Might have to use that for CJ Morgan or something. Hey, man, I've got you a new name when you're on with Dudley and Bob. Your name is Macaque, as a macaque in the morning.
I heard CJ tonight. You know, he's a creative guy on the
We just had our annual review today, and I didn't hear much of his show tonight. Was it good or bad?
Well, I mean, here's the deal with CJ. He's a creative guy.
Yeah, he is.
And you know what most people disrespect about the radio business? You know, they talk about, you know, TV being a volume business.
Yeah.
You know, you got a show that you got to do every day. Most days. Well, those guys take a lot of vacations, just like we do. But, you know, radio, you got to get on and you got to do it every day. And you're not going to be great every day. And I'm not, you know, I'm not talking about today or yesterday for him or whatever. I'm just saying generally, when you do that kind of a show, it's tough, you know, to go in there and do it every day. But this guy, he's creative. You know, he goes in every day and he's got some kind of weird I'll tell you what I respect about him is that he's just got this like stream of creativity that he draws from.
Well, on top of all the stuff he does on the air, he does, a couple of pretty high produced videos every week. I mean, he just produced one of his dog that supposedly got into his bag of mushrooms, and then he does all these special effects where the dog starts tripping. And I'm just like, man, this is fucking where did you get that from? Maybe
First of all, you guys are going way inside for me. Who is this cat?
He's my night jock at KLBJ.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
So I don't know.
Right.
Once again,
you're down in San Antonio with the baboons.
Right here in my heart, man. The people that use Beaver Kool-Aid, all right?
Well, it's an Austin, San Antonio kind of thing, We're trying.
So you're telling me this night jock at KLBJ, excuse me, had a little macaque there. He is, and so that's good. That used to be my domain. I like that. I like to hear that.
Me too. I've always been that guy. Yeah.
You bred your next morning show guy.
Right.
It wasn't in the afternoon. Those guys were like golfers, but it was the night guy who could take some chances, be a little edgy. Maybe he was a little young, not quite ready for a morning show, but he was developing there at night,
That's where I first met you, when you were doing nights at QDR in Raleigh way back when. You were having a party on the radio. That's why I said I wanted to get out of the fucking tobacco field, and I want to get on the radio and do what that guy does, because he's having way more fun than I am. That's for sure.
Yeah, nights is fun, too, because nights is like mornings because you don't really ever have to work with anybody if you don't want to.
Yeah, you got the whole station to yourself.
The difference is it's your audience changes a lot.
Yeah.
When you work in the morning, people have morning routines. So, and that's the one part of the day where people have a routine. And so that's why you can build up a certain audience, and it becomes habit to listen to a show.
Right.
By the afternoon, things are splintered. You don't know where people are mentally because they could have had a good day at work, bad day at work, stuff they got to do. They're in and out. They're more awake. And then nights, let's face it, who listens to commercial radio anymore at night? So you've got a really small audience, truly. People in the car or whatever, that's about it. The days, I think, are long gone where people go and, like when I was far younger, and you're partying and you throw on the rock station because there are too many breaks. There are too many other things you can use to throw up music. But still, if people will let you go, it's like, this is not going to screw up everything if you just let me go and be creative.
Right. And here's the big difference between you and I and Drew, and we were first starting out as night jocks. We didn't have social media, and CJ is brilliant at social media. And the great thing that, I will say about Facebook Live and voice tracking and all this shit, I told CJ, I said, the best thing he can do is continue to do Facebook Live, even if he's in the studio at 7:45 or 8:30 or 8:45, because that proves right there you're in the studio doing a live show in the nighttime in Austin, Texas in 2018. And I guarantee you there's probably not another radio station in town that's doing that except you. And you got the proof right there on your social media page.
Yeah, and that's cool. That's cool.
That is cool.
It's just away from I'm still such an old school guy that I still don't like the fusion of social media and radio, just because it's a visual and in so many ways, or can be used, and people use it certainly as a visual. And I always liked it where there was no visual, so that people didn't know if you were 20, 35, how old you were, what you look like. You could just create an image. And I still think that it's just like these kids that go back to, and I'm sorry if I just insulted some of you by saying kids, but it's just like this throwback to vinyl, throwback to a lot of things. If stuff is good, if it's truly good, it endures. And I think the good part of the radio medium has been minimized by, first of all, it's the suits killed it. We all know it.
Yeah.
Limited playlist. You don't break songs. Songs are broken on the internet. I mean, all this stuff. It's the same old trash, old music. It's only for the lazy because you can, use Spotify or Apple or whatever, iTunes, whatever, and have all your own stuff, have all your own music. And so it's like, why would you want to sit through 20 minutes of commercials an hour to listen to the same old crap? But what they did is they said, okay, wait a minute. Now, the social media thing, that's where we need to connect. And it's like, how about this? How about you allowing me the freedom on the air and having not such a restricted playlist, and then I augment it with social media? But I think at the same time, I think a lot of people, radio would become relevant again if you do use the imagination, if you do have the faceless, if you do have the non-visual. You just have to be good, right?
I was at a convention in L.A. a couple weeks ago, and this buddy of mine, Scott Shannon, he's this morning guy in New York City, and he's doing they called it a fireside chat. And he said exactly that. He said, when the afternoon guy gets fired for his bad ratings, do you think they save his show when he goes, but have you seen my Twitter numbers?
Yeah. Well, I used to love it when you get fired for ratings and you say, did you look at my playlist that I have no control over?
Right.
Which even with Scott Shannon, I've never been a big Scott Shannon guy. I can't believe that he still has a gig, but that's what happens when you ascend to a certain level. There's somebody that'll get you in because you have a brand, you have a name. There you are.
You got to know how to play the game.
Hey, listen, there's morning people in Austin that aren't that great, but they've married the market and they've been here for such a long time that entire families have grown up on their benchmarks. And It's the same thing with Scott. He's been in New York City for a long time.
Well, I hate to kiss my own ass, but I had that happen here. When you're on the radio and in one market for over 30 years, you go through a couple of generations. And that's what I had here. But once again, I'm not Scotty Shannon. And that's the reason why I'm buying stuff with a couple of yellow tags on it.
If you are listening anywhere else in the United States and want to reach out to Lisle, you can call him toll free, Canada and Mexico included, 855-576-2530. There it is, 855-576-2530. You can call and speak to Lisle.
I got a ton of Mexican Viagra, so I'm ready to go, dude. I am ready to go.
So I'm going to bring the part of the episode where you guys call me a pussy and a woman and everything, and I'm going to redeem myself this week because I know both of you think that I was glued to the TV to watch the royal wedding this week. But I'm going to tell you,
right?
I did not watch it for 1 second. I didn't watch. I think I did watch.
You got it recorded.
All right, you got me there. I do have it recorded, but I haven't watched it yet.
This is so you, dude.
Right.
But it
was too early for him. That's the only reason.
I didn't have my hat or my green dress,
Man, I woke up early that morning.
Did you?
And turned on the television. And, I was like, oh, okay, the wedding's on it, and I was doing the time change in my head. And then I get on Facebook to check my Facebook, and people had been up since 4 a.m, right?
Oh, they were doing all-night parties.
Unbelievable.
Right?
Unbelievable. That's insane.
But think about this. Now, he probably didn't have a little stag party the night before the royal wedding. But if he did, can you imagine? Obviously, he's going to get any stripper he wants because of his status. But think about this: when you pull that money out of your pocket and it's got your grandma's face on it, you start sticking it in that stripper's drawers. It's got to feel a little weird, right? Don't you think that's a little weird?
I think that they had, they did do that, but I think he did what his brother did, and they just have like a party where they all sit around and drink.
I didn't know strippers wore drawers. I mean, what the?
They do in England, man.
You're going to see, Lloyd.
They do in London, man. They've got those old school, old school drawers. Knickers, right? Thank you.
Right, they're wearing.
I just call them drawers, man. Right.
I mean, The drawers. I hate all that stuff and all the royal crap, and I wish it'd just go away. And the protocol. This was such an interesting thing, though, not just because you now have an American. I hate to say an American because it's an American from the United States. We should do it the right way, and we never do it that way. But just to be politically correct. But I think it's great, the biracial nature and the fact that her family's she's got different people that are a bit screwed in her extended family. Her father of course, wasn't at the wedding. But I like this biracial thing because, you start thinking about, for England, all the colonies they had once upon a time and all the things that they did with blacks and whatnot. And so I think that's very cool. Just like I thought when I was very joyous when Barack Obama was elected president here, because I thought, how far have we come, right?
Right, yeah.
The difference is, which I've never really understood this, and maybe you guys can help me, because I don't really get it, is that Barack Obama was referred to as our first black president.
Mm-hmm.
And now the Duchess of Sussex is referred to as biracial. Now, her mother is black, her father is white.
Mm-hmm.
In Obama's case, you've got a white mother, black father.
Mm-hmm.
I see these different things, whether it's Halle Berry or whoever. I mean, if your dad's black or you black and you're not mulatto, to me, you're mulatto, you're biracial.
Right. I see where you're going with that.
Tend to refer, it's kind of like, no, Obama was not. I said this back when he got elected. I said, we're halfway there, dude. When you got somebody who's just as, who's really dark skinned and he gets elected, then we've really turned the corner, and I'm excited because these are biracial people. There's plenty of biracial people that are out there.
Yeah, but if you're half,
how they identify, but for Barack Obama, your dad wasn't in the picture. Your mother's white. You're spending all those time with your grandparents. They're white. You're basically that's your side.
That's a good point. I haven't really thought about it that way, but you're absolutely right.
Personally, yeah, I mean, he may have been raised by an entire white family, but there's adopted kids who still identify with their culture, who were raised, by white families. I mean, I know he's half white, but still he's half black too.
Yeah, but But my point is, with the former Miss Markle, they're not saying
she's black. They're saying black. Biracial, right? I get you. I know exactly what you're saying.
They're saying biracial, which I think is tremendous, cool, whatever. What I'm saying is that there doesn't seem to be any consistency here.
Yeah.
And I also hear what Drew's saying. It depends on, how you identify.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't know, once again, because I'm old, feeble, horny, and on no income, not a fixed income, but welcome your phone calls. If you're interested.
855-576-2530.
I'm trying to figure out if your father is black, will others identify you as black? But if you're, and if your mother is white, then that's, that's okay. But if your mother's black and your father's white or some other race, then you're just biracial. I just trying to figure it out. Because frankly, if I'm black, that to me, I look at both my parents, and sorry, I'm not an African American kind of guy. I just say black. If my parents are both black, I'm black. If one is of one race and another one, I'm mulatto. I'm mixed race. And I don't even know if I can say mulatto anymore.
Well,
I once did on the radio, and now Canadian mulatto Dan Hill. With sometimes when we touch.
I think if you're half anything, any kind of ethnic, thing, if you're half Native American, then you typically identify with, that, right? I mean, if
Well,
you're
what?
half black,
Which
you're going to
side?
identify.
Your mom's side, your dad's side, which side?
I don't think it matters. I just am saying that
Well, then you can
if
pick
you're
and
half
choose,
French,
then.
you know, it's probably different. But if you're half Chinese, then you're going to, nod to that, culture. I mean,
Well, how
there's
do
a
you
lot-
know? I mean, maybe you don't. Maybe you don't look Asian, and
and people do it to different degrees. I mean, there might be somebody who has a piece of it in their lives, but not much, and there are others who go run the whole thing with food and everything.
well, I mean, in years past, where things were really set up according to racial boundaries, you had people who would be designated octoroon, quadroon. There are all these different things depending upon what part of you, since, being African was somewhat vilified, then like the less African you were somehow kind of paid off a little bit, but still somebody would trace that in your background. We're far beyond that now. For example, my son, my first wife is Hispanic, and my son was a National Hispanic Scholarship winner. He was a National Hispanic Scholarship winner in his senior year of high school. Now, was he Hispanic because his mother was? I'm not. I mean, I wasn't going to turn my nose up at it and say, dude, whatever you can get.
Exactly.
Because this was all based off of SAT. Nothing he had applied for. Because of his SAT scores, stuff started coming this way. So at some point, maybe he checked off the box. I don't know.
Smart kid.
But I'm right into that same thing when I go like, do I look at you and do I think that you're Hispanic? And once again, I'd always say that's more of an ethnicity and not a race or a nationality. No one ever says, like people say, I'm Mexican American, and that's because the Spanish didn't kill all the Indians, and the Indians didn't recognize country borders. They were all over. When I first moved to San Antonio, I look around, I go, Jesus, these are a bunch of Native Americans. It was culture shock to me, but they're not Spaniards. They're like native people. They're Indians.
Here's what I
see people and they go, I'm Canadian American. But in Canada, tons of Indians, native people, there's French and English and Asian and Indian, and
especially Ted Cruz, right? He never says I'm
right.
You name it, but no one ever says, well, I'm Canadian American.
Let me reflect back to the 70s. My father married a pure
Hang on
Cherokee.
a second, dude. I just need this to melt on my tongue just for a second.
All right. You ready?
Now reflect back to
Okay.
the 70s.
Think about this. My father married a pure Cherokee. My mother's people were ashamed of me. The Indians said I was white by law, and if I was a woman, the white man would call me Indian squaw. Half-breed.
I
That's
love
all
this.
I ever
That's all I
heard.
ever heard.
This is like he Fresh Prince of Bel-Air us with a Cher song.
No, I know. No, as soon as he started, I knew exactly where it was. It's like,
So here's the deal. way back in the olden days, when our grandparents were, in our 40s to 60s.
Grandparents, Drew. Let's do perspective here.
We have to look back, I think, at some political laws back in, when slavery and segregation was
Jim Crow
prevalent.
stuff. Yeah.
Well, they're called one-drop rules, where you were considered black if you had one drop of African American blood in you, and there were laws that you had to follow that were that thankfully many have disappeared. But I think that even though those laws existed all the way up into the late 60s, right? But I think the way of labeling people, based upon their heritage, remained after that, right? Where you would look at somebody like Vanessa Williams, for instance, right? Who's she was popular singer, and she was a Miss America, I think, at one time. Posed for Playboy, got in trouble. She's biracial. She's biracial, but people called her black, right? But she has she's from a biracial family, and I think it just, to me, I think the reason that we do it here is because of our history here in the United States, and perhaps the reason that they refer to Meghan as biracial is because they never dealt with the one drop rule over in the UK.
Well, they probably did at some point, but maybe it's been gone for a while, because that's the whole thing about the UK is because of all the colonies. You've got so many different nationalities and ethnic groups that make up Great Britain. Just one little thing here, because I'm getting hungry, man, because the bad cheese is not sustaining me. You guys, because all these things always come up, Plessy versus Ferguson. You've heard about that ruling before because they bring that up a lot. That was before Brown versus Board of Education. Plessy versus Ferguson was, it went to the Supreme Court in 1896. And that was the separate but equal thing that reigned until Brown versus Board of Education. And that's what started desegregation and everything else. Separate but equal. Do you guys know the background of Plessy versus Ferguson at all?
No.
Okay. This Plessy guy, he was a Creole in New Orleans. And he gets on the, I don't know what it was, streetcar, train, whatever. And they go, no, you got to be back in the black car. And he says, but I'm not black. And that's what it all started. He said, but I'm not a black guy. And he was mixed race. And he, once again, he was like 1/8 of African descent. 7/8 European. And so he brought this whole lawsuit up, and it goes to the Supreme Court. And that's because it wasn't because he didn't want to be called black. He didn't want to ride in the car with the black people. He said, I'm not black. And so this went to the Supreme Court, and that's where they established a separate but equal.
If I was living during those times, I would be wanting to go to the black car, because I know they were having way more fun than the fucking stuffy ass white cars up there.
But isn't that wild? Because a lot of times people look at that and they don't know what it is, and they go, it must have been, it's Plessy versus Ferguson, what happened here? And that's when they established everything's cool if it's equal, but it's separate. So that meant, separate water fountains, restrooms, this thing, that thing. And this dude, he was screaming, not because it's like, I'm not black. I'm not black. And it didn't happen. It was a 7-1 decision. And none of that stuff got reversed until Brown versus Board of Education, which was brought up in Oklahoma. And people don't know that. It wasn't like a guy where they go, okay, this black guy was really, he was 1/8 black.
Wow. That is pretty amazing. Plessy.
I think it's the one drop rule. I think that's why we refer to people that way. I think it's why, people who are from a mixed race family, I think that's why they identify with that culture. I think it's fine.
I guess you can identify with whatever if it maybe propels you a little bit, because it certainly will help you getting scholarships. I know that. And then other things, because you can choose whatever. And more power to you. And I'm so anti-racist. I love, when you just have mutts and you have all these different people.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to always figure out, why you call this person black and you call that person biracial, or that person could be white? Is it just off of appearance?
I think in this case it had to do with the fact that it was the wedding was in the UK versus the United States.
Right.
Yeah, but so Obama, it was not our first black president. He was our first mulatto president, maybe. And there it is. I mean, that's the way I look at it.
But that's what I'm saying is that he's the first black president because he's the first half-black president. And we've always, because of our own history, our own embarrassing history, we still refer to people who have one drop of African-American blood in them as black.
Well, sometimes yes, sometimes no. But I got you, man. I got you. I like that. And you have a soothing quality. And I'll go to bed now. And I appreciate that, Daddy. And you helped me out a lot. But I will just say as a footnote, Lloyd and I are from the farm. And I don't know if you've swabbed yet, Lloyd. I keep thinking about it because when you're from the farm, man, you don't know where you are.
Well, that's true.
And if I do the swab, I may find out.
You know, I'm thinking I think I've really figured out what I'm going to be if I take that DNA swab.
What?
A Rhesus Macaque.
Yeah. I'm surprised.
Are you pure, or is that just your mother?
I just looked at my baboon's ass.
He was born with a tail.
Yeah, the problem is that baboon's ass looks like it's on top of your head. Sorry, pal.
Oh, man. Damn. Ouch. That's hard.
I will go to your party and I will tear it up.
Really?
Beaver Kool-Aid
Get it hard.
with Lisle, L.A. Lloyd, and Drew.
Make it like a man.
So go ahead, stick your head up your ass.